What if Gojo never escaped from the prison realm? Well, everyone is cooked. It's not just Shibuya or Japan, but the entire world is going to become metaphorically cleaved and dismantled by Sukuna. The honor run is officially sealed. What would end up happening if this turned out to be the case? Is it really over if Gojo never makes it out of the prison realm? Guys, in this video, we're going to see exactly what would happen if Gojo never escaped from the prison realm. This video is going to be raw, unfiltered, so make sure you have your favorite snacks and drinks in your hand. My name is TK. If you're liking the content so far, please like, comment, and subscribe. We're getting better and stronger every day. Let's get into some anime. Well, with our scenario set up, let's begin. We know that in chapter 214, when Hana falls from the rooftop after getting violently injured by Sukuna, she was going to die, but as it is revealed in chapter 220, Rin saved her and she was later healed by Shoko and Yuta thanks to the reverse curse technique. Now, since we're talking about a scenario where Gojo never escapes from the prison realm, we have to assume that Hana died in chapter 214, along with Angel. This will make it fundamentally impossible for Gojo to escape, because they need Angel's Jacob's Ladder to negate the prison realm's curse. For the sake of context, Yuta won't be of help because, as we see in chapter 251, he copies Angel's Jacob's Ladder during the 1-month time skip. So yes, in this story, Gojo won't come back and the date of the big fight won't be decided either. Sukuna will kill Yorozu just like he did in the original story and bury Megumi's soul deep within him because, of course, Yorozu's death means Sumiki's death. And Sukuna knew what he was doing when he killed Megumi's sister with Megumi's technique. Going back to the date of the fight in the original story, when the gang undoes the seal and Gojo escapes from the prison realm, he confronts Kenjaku and is almost immediately met with Sukuna. This is where the two of them agree on December 24th as the date of their duel. But let me ask you a question. Sukuna was still at 15 fingers and he hadn't eaten his mummified corpse either. Gojo was obviously strong enough to deal with both 15 fingers Sukuna and Kenjaku. So why did he agree to it? It's because he knew that they needed a solid strategy. I mean, think about it. Did Gojo ever think he could sail inside of the prison realm in the middle of Shibuya? No, he was caught off guard. That's why when Gojo asks to postpone the fight, it's because he knows that he needs a strategy. Kenjaku is far too unpredictable and Sukuna is Sukuna. Anything that can happen may happen, and what does end up happening can very easily surpass his imagination. Gojo knew that there was no point in fighting in that situation because if he loses by some unexpected twist of fate, all his efforts would also be rendered useless too because there won't be anyone around to pick up after him. This is exactly why in this what-if scenario, even if the entire team jumps Sukuna while he is still at 15 fingers, the outcome would be the same. 15 fingers Sukuna can still take out Yuta, Kashimo, Yuji, Maki, and the others no problem because the king would still have his domain expansion. The team cannot handle Malevolent Shrine by any means. The only reason Yuta was able to pull one over Sukuna in chapter 249 with his domain is because Sukuna was literally out of gas. If Sukuna had his domain when Yuta used his domain, Yuta would get killed because no one but Gojo can compete with Sukuna in a domain battle. I'd say the Malevolent Shrine is so broken that even if Sukuna was at 10 fingers, he can still destroy Yuta and the others. This leads to an obvious answer. Even if Gojo never gets out, the team is still going to decide to take their time and come up with some schemes until Sukuna and Kenjaku are about to start things off. They'll come up with schemes, plans, even contingencies, but they'll have less time because the culling games are still in motion, and also because Sukuna isn't just going to chill around. As soon as Sukuna eats the rest of the fingers and his mummified body, it'll be time for the final battle. At best, they'll have a week before Sukuna and Kenjaku resume the game and leave our protagonist with no choice but to intervene. This is enough time to come up with a plan, but nowhere near enough to come up with something even a quarter as practical. We have to keep in mind that in the original story, Gojo removed Sukuna's domain expansion, Kashimo revealed his true form, and Higuruma removed his curse technique. Also, Yuji, Yuta, and the others can finally take him out. That's why even if our gang can manage to be as strong as they became after the month time skip, they'd still brutally lose and get killed because there won't be a Gojo to give them a solid foundation from the start. Kashimo would get wrecked by Malevolent Shrine because Sukuna will still have his domain. Honestly, even if the gang manages to somehow in some way push Sukuna to the same point as Gojo, he'll eventually just use his original form and it's all over. By the time Sukuna shows Kashimo the meaning of love, he wouldn't lose anything, not his domain expansion and not even his curse technique. That is why Maki, Yuji, Hakari, Choso, Tora, Higuruma, Kusakabe, and the rest will still be at the same playing field. Meanwhile, who's going to handle Kenjaku? Even if we leave it to Takaba, he won't be able to deal the final blow, and so Kenjaku will always be around to make things significantly worse. And it's not like anyone else can do it as well as Kenjaku either. We're talking about a sorcerer who has been around for over 1,000 years. He is already familiar with all there is to know about Jujutsu itself. Maybe Yuta stands a chance, but Yuta versus Kenjaku would be an extreme diff in the truest sense of the word. At the end of the fight, Yuta will likely be incapacitated in ways we can't even imagine. Maybe Kashimo and Yuta versus Kenjaku would work, but nah, Kashimo needs that smoke from Sukuna. That's his whole shtick after all. He won't ever agree to this. That's why using Takaba to distract Kenjaku long enough for Yuta to land the final blow is still the most optimal form, even in this version of the story. I'm not saying Takaba would have been of help against Sukuna. His curse technique is too broken. Just imagine him thinking that Gojo breaking free from the prison room all by himself and then pulling up to the battle would be funny. It's ridiculous because the possibility of this happening isn't zero. But if you consider things from the perspective that calling games can end if Kenjaku dies, then the game would indeed use Takaba and Yuta against Kenjaku. Meanwhile, Kashimo would be the opening act. Mystical Beast Amber is rad, and we all know it was brazen enough to force Sukuna into his true form, but as I said, that was because Sukuna couldn't use his domain expansion. In this case, he'd rip Kashimo apart as quickly as he entered the chat. Next, Higuruma, Yuji, and Choso would jump while Hakari would keep Urame preoccupied. But this is how it's going to go. Sukuna would obviously not jump at every chance to use his domain expansion. He doesn't need it most of the time. He did need it against Jogo, so there is a chance that he'll let Higuruma use his domain expansion just for the fun of it. Now, when Higuruma uses the deadly sentencing, the trial begins and Sukuna pleads guilty because he is only interested in the sword. Thanks to Kusakabe, Choso, and Ino, as well as Higuruma's sacrifice, Yuji was able to land the sword. Yuji then uses his reverse curse technique to heal himself, and Yuta finally returned. That's how it was in the manga. The problem here is that even if we assume that everything goes according to plan until the point Yuji lands the sucker punch, Sukuna simply won't let him land it because why the hell would he allow a brat like Yuji to ever get the W on him ever? He'd slice up both of Yuji's arms just as Yuji was about to pierce him with the executioner sword. When Yuta returns and uses his own domain expansion, Sukuna can use Malevolent Shrine and it would be over. Maki cannot sneak up on Sukuna either because Malevolent Shrine is an open barrier domain. Yeah, no wonder stealing Gojo was so important to Kenjaku. By the way, in this version of the story, the higher-ups will also still be around, but they'll just sit on their ass and watch the fight on phone while Mei charges them extra VIP fees. Ultimately, it'll just end as Sukuna said it's going to end. Although Sukuna would be much more aggressive in this version because there won't be any Gojo to make him feel sentimental, his dynamic with Yuji won't change. In chapter 248, when Sukuna realizes that Yuji's spirit truly is unbreakable, he makes it his goal to crush all of Yuji's hopes. That's exactly what will happen in this version of the story. Starting from Yuta, everyone including Choso and Todo, even Hakari would eventually be killed one by one, and Yuji alone will be left standing. It would mirror the scene from chapter 259 where he starts feeling hopeless again, but Todo would already be dead. It'd just be him and him alone. Yuji was able to figure out his curse technique, reverse curse technique, and even his domain expansion during the 1 month time skip. But there won't be any time skip in this case because Sukuna and Kenjaku would act within days, maybe a week at best, but any longer would be pushing it. He won't be as strong. He'll be left standing all alone in front of Sukuna in a perfectly poetic, twisted sense of irony. Of course, Sukuna would kill Yuji, but in his final moment, he'd remember his grandpa's last words. "You are strong, kid. Save as many people as you can so that when it's your time to go, you are surrounded by those who care about you." And yet here he is, all alone, unable to do anything except shed a few tears from the deepest reaches of his heart as Sukuna slices him into multiple pieces. Nobody knows what had happened after that. Maybe Sukuna would trigger the merger, maybe he'll go on to terrorize the entire world. All in all, Gojo truly was the monster keeping everything in check. He died, but he gave everyone a chance to fight. As we're talking about this, chapter 265 is the latest chapter. Yuji has just used his domain expansion, on Sukuna, and Sukuna's face is priceless. As they take a trip down Sentimental Lane, we'll see what happens next. But this actual story, rather than mine, where all the tragedies and sacrifices will mean something, because Gojo's student, Itadori Yuji, will kill Ryomen Sukuna and save his friend Megumi Fushiguro with his own 2 hands. Overall, what do you guys think? Do you agree with my thoughts on what if Gojo never escaped from the prison realm? Do you think things will play out differently? Let's talk about it in the comment section down below. Make sure to also like, comment, and subscribe if you're liking the content so far. It helps the channel grow and also inspires me to keep making videos like this one. Well guys, my name is TK, loving us some anime. See you on the next video.